All right, now I'm up here at Tragedy Springs, and this is the main trail coming out of El Dorado County in the early part of the gold rush. Now, I was talking about Tragedy Springs, and there's no way Native Americans would have been responsible for the murder of those 3 Mormon men. And I gave the reasons why. Well, here's something else to put on this. The Second Indian War of El Dorado County, a band of Indian warriors on horseback rode into cockeyed Jack Johnson's, which is where today's Apple Mountain Golf Course is located. And they shot the place up, and they stole these horses and some cattle. Then they went down and they hit Ringgold, which no longer exists as a town, but it's close to what's now Diamond Springs, which they did hit. They hit Diamond Springs, and then they hit the town of El Dorado, shooting at miners' cabins and tents, and rounding up all the horses and cattle, and then they supposedly are told they turned around and took them out. Well, this is the way they'd have to go to come out. Now, when Captain Rogers and the El Dorado County militia dispersed, and the sheriffs, if you will, dispersed to go get them Injuns, get on the trail, when they showed up at cockeyed Jack Johnson's, mysteriously enough, they just hung out and drank whiskey and panned for gold in a place that really didn't have any gold, and they roamed around and they didn't find any Indians. Well, they did find one Indian, but they admitted that Indian, there's no way he was involved in it, so there was nothing on with him. And eventually they had to get Peg Leg Smith to go find Copahambo and some Hill Nisanan to sign a peace treaty. Well, here's why. Right beside me. If you're running a couple hundred head of horses and cattle out of cockeyed Jack Johnson's, Diamond Springs, and El Dorado, you've got to come right through here, because here's the spring. On the other side of this hill is a cliff, and the other side of that is a granite boulder field that drops off into a cliff. You got to come through here. If you are 3 or 4 years old, you can tell on this dirt if a couple of hundred horses and cattle came through it. An idiot can track anything on this. This is the only place they can come. When Rogers and the guys showed up at cockeyed Jack Johnson's, there was no trail of a couple of hundred head of horses and cattle going this way. So they wanted to collect their money. The state would reimburse them for fighting hostile Indians. So they had to give it some time. And eventually they had to find some Indians to sign a peace treaty so that they could get reimbursement money. They knew the minute they showed up at cockeyed Jack Johnson, then the ground wasn't all torn up with horse poop and cattle poop and tracks going this way. The whole thing was a wild goose chase. Now, this is also coupled, the elderly Indians hanging around my grandpa's sawmill in the 1930s said, well, we didn't do that. Because the Indians, the Hill Nisanan and the Washoe, at that moment in time, they didn't have a horse. They didn't even know how to herd horses and cattle, and they didn't know how to ride a horse. Neither the Washoe nor the Hill Nisanan had horses. And as they pointed out, if we'd taken a couple of hundred horses and cattle up in the mountains, what did we do with them? Nobody ever found a pile of horse bones, cattle bones, and whatever, which you're not going to be able to hide. And there was never any trail that was found. And this is why. It was a put-up job. The whole thing was a wild goose chase. The Indians didn't have the guns, and they didn't know how to ride horses to shoot the guns off of. So the Second Indian War of El Dorado County, like a lot of things we can point out now, look at it from like a Columbo movie or a Sherlock Holmes story. They weren't Indians. Some guys dressed up as Indians that have guns and know how to ride horses come in, shoot a few times, and steal a bunch of horses and cattle. And some compatriot of theirs says, oh, the Indians swiped them and went this way, when in reality they went that way. If you want to sell a bunch of horses and cattle, black market, you're not going this way into Never Never Land. You're going to go down to San Jose. You're going to go down south of Stockton. You're going to go down there where you can sell them and you'll get your money right quick, no questions asked. You're not going to herd and go to the work of herding hundreds of horses and cattle hundreds of miles into the middle of a freaking desert through the mountain pass. No. So we can look at these things now and just apply a little bit of logic. This is what Captain Rogers and the guys were doing. That's what the Indians were doing. And now we know what the thieves were doing.